Hello, we're here with Rian Chandler-Dovis. We're going to talk about, first and foremost, the Padrino Foundation.
Yeah.
Your work, you've been involved in that, and you can just give us an outline, a general overview of the work they do. In your writings, you refer to yourself as an immigrant.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm an immigrant.
And yes, you could also be referred to as an expat, right? A lot of people refer to them. So, but that's an interesting thing
Yes.
that's an interesting thing that we can go into. Tell us about the Padrino Foundation. What is it?
Sure. Yeah. So I should clarify I'm a volunteer. I don't work for the organization, but I've done some volunteer work, gotten involved within the past 6 months or so. And it's a foundation based in Todos Santos that is working on providing healthcare to children that otherwise don't have access.
Mainly children in the Todos Santos area, or
Mainly children in the Todos Santos area. Yeah. So it's sort of an interesting situation where, of course, there's an EMIS and IMSS office in Todos Santos, but there was no pediatrician. So unless children are able to drive an hour to Los Cabos or to La Paz, they aren't able to access a pediatrician. So now there's pediatric coverage in Todos Santos, and even more impressively, there's coverage of a lot of pediatric specialists that otherwise many children wouldn't have access to anywhere in the region.
Thanks to your involvement in the Padrino Foundation, because I'm reading here an article that I should know, but I don't, if it was ever published in Destino. But has it been published?
No,
we should publish it. So this is like a preview of the article.
Yes.
But in it, you mentioned that you've run into a lot of interesting cultural dynamics when working at the Padrino Foundation. For example, in the United States, charity is like very ingrained in the culture. It's super normal to actively participate, at least donate, monthly to charity. Like a lot of people do it. There's this Super Thursday thing. How is it called? The day after Thanksgiving, Giving Tuesday. Yeah, so it's part of the culture here. Not so much, not really. I personally don't give to charity, and not because I don't think I should. It's just something that I've never so those kinds of things you've run into, right? So what has been most surprising for you?
Yeah, it's super interesting. So I should qualify that in my job I work with a lot of nonprofits.
Okay. In the United States.
Globally. So big global nonprofits, and that was part of why when I approached Padrino about working to do a volunteer project to bring some awareness to Los Cabos here, that was part of why I sort of reached out and said, this is my expertise, this is my background. And so I do have a lot of knowledge about donors, particularly in the US and Europe. A lot of our research studies have been in those areas. And I was surprised to learn and start to pick apart how the Mexican culture just takes a much more personal approach to charity. So I don't think that charity doesn't exist here, but I think that people care for their families through their churches and through their more immediate communities. And there's just a level of skepticism around foundations, is the way that it's been described to me by many of my Mexican-born friends. There's been a number of incidents that have come out where there's been, different reasons to be skeptical about some large foundations and the way they're using money, et cetera. And so people tend to be more personal. Where in the US, we're very used to a lot of transparency and regulation around foundations or NGOs or nonprofits. And so we're used to donating that way. There's less of a tight-knit community aspect to many areas in the U.S., especially bigger cities, et cetera. And so people tend to have the habit of giving to sort of larger foundations or larger organizations by comparison. So, interestingly enough, you brought up me being an immigrant. Part of what makes this area really unique is it is so diverse, and there's a lot of immigrants from all over the world. And so you see more foundations propping up as societal needs are exposed, like this need that we can get into in terms of children's health care. And the immigrant approach to that will be to set up a foundation. It will be sort of to mirror that not all immigrants, but those from the U.S. or Europe, Australia, certain areas might sort of see that as a solution. And there's a little bit of an interesting tension in sort of the Mexican more personal approach to charity and this sort of foundation establishing sort of broader scale approach. But there's a lot of beauty when you marry the two.
Yeah, it's interesting the more individual approach that you mentioned. I also think that Mexico is a much more vertical society. I don't know if you agree, and the United States is much more horizontal. And people here in Mexico, we sometimes expect someone else to do it for you. Like you expect sometimes the government, like this is the government's task. And in the United States, you are very good with organizing yourselves and getting things done on your own, and not necessarily expecting an authority to provide. Is that fair, or is it more like a prejudice on my part?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think I would frame one way as good or bad or the other, but it is an interesting piece. Like, I think one of the things I've noticed in speaking to Mexican-born people is a lot of people do expect these sort of larger societal gaps to be filled by the government. Like, that's the government's job. In the U.S., we have a system where, for a long time, a big portion of the people have argued against big government, or there's sort of this idea that maybe larger government compromises personal freedom, and so I won't agree or disagree with that idea. I think it's a complicated idea, but I do think that people are used to the idea of sort of I want to pay less taxes and have more autonomy over where my money goes. So if we organize it and I can make an impact with my money over here, I'd rather do that than through the filter of the government. So that it's a different, you're right, there's a different organizational approach. But I don't think I would say one is better than the other. I would just say that there's sort of different characteristics of both.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think one is better to the other, but what I find very interesting in your article is that you talk about how these differences, if channeled correctly, can create a lot of synergies, and they become very effective. Right? Have you seen that at the Padrino Foundation?
I think so. Yeah. Well, it's just starting, right? But I think that's exactly right. The amazing opportunity we have in a diverse and changing environment like we have here in Baja California Sur is the opportunity to bring the strengths of different cultures together, and really have difficult and interesting and deep conversations about what that means and how we do it in a way that everyone benefits from, that respects culture, that respects background, that it respects what's here while bringing in new ideas. And I think the greatest human advancements happen in those spaces. So, I think what's really interesting about Padrino and the way they've been run versus some larger foundations that I've worked with in the past or have some more intimate knowledge of is just the efficiency by which the organization runs and the transparency through which the organization runs. So very clear about who they're helping, very clear stories online, very clear reports in terms of finances, and just the amount of impact this organization can make with small funds. So I'll give you an example. I've worked on children's hospitals in the U.S., and it takes multiple tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to build a children's hospital in the U.S. And there's huge campaigns around it that raise, like I said, hundreds of millions of dollars, big gifts. For example, a facility I know just working on psychiatric children's care in the U.S., I think it took $250 million to build it for that center.
Wow.
They're building Padrino's new clinic in Todos Santos for $1.2 million, and it serves such a broad variety of specialized needs in Todos Santos. I mean, that's unheard of in the States.
You mentioned that 85% of pediatric care in the Todos Santos area is by Padrino.
By Padrino. I mean, the need has far exceeded the ability of the current clinic, which is why they're building this new facility. but just the impact that these dollars can make. And they've already raised almost all the funds they need to build this. They need a little bit more funds, and they need support to keep sustaining the organization. But I mean, it's amazing the impact that your peso, your dollar, can make in these environments where, there's an understanding of Mexican culture, an understanding of the need of transparency, an understanding of just how people come together to support something like this. And you overlay it with the understanding of how you build a foundation and how you fundraise against a foundation. But when those things come together, magic happens, community-based magic. And that's what I see in what's happening at Padrino.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the deep generosity and community orientation of the Mexican culture, meeting the immigrant mindset that values donor-funded systemic solutions, right? So you think that captures it?
Yes, I mean, of course, you have more time to write the perfect words in an article than say them. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, like that systemic solution coming from sort of the U.S. background of how charity happens, and that very personal community orientation coming from the culture here in Mexico. It's a beautiful combination if leveraged in the right way.
And the Mexicans that are part of Padrino, and not necessarily not mainly the volunteers, but also the volunteers and also the people in management positions. Are they from the Todos Santos area, or are they from other parts of Mexico?
A combination. I mean, just like the rest of us, right? I know there are people at Padrino that are from Todos Santos that have those deep roots. And there are people like Dr. Alejandra is from Mexico City, and I believe the executive director is from Todos Santos. And so there's a combination, just like everywhere we have here, of immigrants and of Mexicans from all over and Mexicans from here. And it makes for a nice cultural harmony, that bringing together of different perspectives.
And do you find, in the same way that you find people from the U.S. and Mexicans in general, that they can create synergies when they work together, do you find that Mexicans from different parts of Mexico also, have you noticed any of those
of
kind
course.
Of cool collaborations?
So I will say that I have sort of maybe a foundational belief that different people with different ideas and different backgrounds coming together always have the opportunity to enrich each other's perspectives. So I do see some of that. I wish I saw more in terms of I wish I was more embedded in situations to get to see that come to life. But for instance, I've seen like Mexico City. It's a city environment. People move quicker. They tend to be more systems oriented. Big truck passing by. So people from the city, such as yourself, tend to be more systems oriented. They tend to move a little quicker, a little faster pace. Mm-hmm. And like yourself with Destino, bring in new ideas on art and culture, a lot of which are sort of tended in the city, right? Those sort of movement. But the people here, they really, some things I love about the culture of Baja California Sur are the slowing down, mm-hmm. the joy in everyday moments. I think that people from here tend to be some of the most joyous people mm-hmm. I have ever met in my life. And, I think in a more faster paced city environment like I'm from or you're from, sometimes we forget those savoring the presence, which can be very present here.
Yeah, and I think that what I mentioned before about Mexican culture being very vertical, I think that's true. That may be true more in the center of the country where I'm from, and mm-hmm. maybe the south. And I think that kind of showed a bit of a prejudice with me because I don't think that's the way it is in the north or here, which is more like the northwest, right? I think the people in the north are very, very much like self-reliant and they go out and do stuff themselves and they're not so much kind of like enmeshed in this kind of vertical system of relations, which is very much how the Mexico City operates. So yeah, I mean it's totally different. The cultures within Mexico are very different from each other. That takes me to the question that we were talking about in the beginning, the word expat and the word immigrant. I do think that the word expat is kind of outdated. I think my grandmother, she lived in Mexico like for 50 years. She died. She was from New Hampshire originally.
Okay.
I don't think she ever referred to herself as an immigrant. I think she always she was like, I'm an expat. I don't know why. But it would probably surprise me if I heard her talking about herself as an immigrant. My grandfather, he was from Germany, and he was definitely an immigrant that came to Mexico. But I don't know. So what I'm trying to say is basically, what do you think about that term, expat, and is there still a place for that, or not really, or?
So I know different people feel very different about these. This is personal reflections, but I think that the origin of the name was someone who was going to work in another country on a temporary basis.
Okay.
And I think it is now used to describe anyone with wealth moving to a nation with perhaps less wealth, which I find problematic at its core.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that there's nothing temporary about me and my family moving to Mexico. We moved to Mexico because we felt safer here. We moved to Mexico because we thought it offered us a better quality of life, because we wanted our children to grow up in this culture. And those are the reasons an immigrant moves.
Yeah. Need. Right?
It's sort of
like
need.
Sort of need.
Right. Exactly. It's sort of need. For us, it wasn't necessarily economic need, but there was still a sense of safety, security, peace, a better way of life. And that's the reason people have migrated for
forever.
A very long time, 30,000 years or whenever the first people came to the Americas. So, to me, to distinguish myself as different from any other immigrant would be wrong. I think, there's a lot of, rightfully so, there should be some sensitivity as to the past few hundred years and the way that some people moved to other countries and were very extractive. So instead of moving to be part of another culture, they moved to be apart from it, maybe to influence that other culture, and certainly to get what they could get and take it back to wherever they were from. And that word expat feels a little like it borders that mentality. Instead of thinking of yourself as part of something, you're thinking of yourself as extracting from it. Oh, I can live cheaper or enjoy these beautiful beaches, and then I can go back to where I am from, and there's a little bit of superiority in it, unfortunately. And I think people react to that. And I think we're at a time where people are reacting to that a bit more. The political situation in the U.S., between the U.S. and Mexico is a part of that. And so there's a sensitivity and a reflection that needs to come. And especially as immigrants, I mean, look, it is not easy to go and live in another culture. It takes, whether it's from Mexico City to here, New York City to Alabama, because the same things exist in the U.S., or, from another country to here, it takes a willingness to be open and learn a new way. And that's, people don't leave their birthplace, the easy place where they were born, without some sort of friction. So I think understanding all these things and coming together, I call myself an immigrant because that is the term that most accurately describes me, and because of some reflection I've done around the terms that I think will be the most harmonious in helping us move forward, as a community.
Yeah, I agree. I think the term expat is a little bit dated by now. I think immigrant seems to capture what it is. Also, part-time or temporary resident, if you're here, but if you want to call yourself an expat, it's cool too. It's fine. But no, but what I like about what you wrote in your Substack, because you also have a Substack, is that that mutual respect is non-negotiable, and that it ultimately, like, the experience has to be about belonging, and beyond whatever word you choose. I think that's the important thing. No, it has to be about belonging. And what do you mean by that?
What do I mean by the sense of
Yeah,
belonging?
what does it mean
Yeah, I
to
mean,
you?
to me, to belong to a community is to be integrated into it. It's to find the ways that you can support your community and make your community, improve your community in meaningful ways while respecting what's there. So it has to kind of
Hmm.
go hand in hand. That's what I mean with the mutual respect. You know, if you go into any situation that's new to you and your first reaction is to change it
Hmm.
versus learn it, then you're not respecting what's there, what's been built, what exists. And unfortunately there is a little bit of a human tendency to want to do that. Like, how do I go in and change something or make it better, make it feel more comfortable to me?
Hmm.
And I think what we have to do is rather sit back and say, what is needed? How can I be useful, helpful? How can I give as much as I take and become a part of the fabric of a community?
Yeah, and I think that tendency to be like, I come to a place and I want to change it so it fits me, which is ultimately entitlement. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
very true from people that come from metropolis, like me, like from Mexico City. Like, that's why uh, they say, and I agree, that in other parts of Mexico, like, we are hard to get along with. It's hard to get along with people from Mexico City because we think, like, here we are, and we come here with with little sense of like cultural awareness, and we expect to that everything has to be the way we want it to be. So yeah, it takes, I think, humility in doing what you mentioned, that it's, perhaps a more fitting attitude, like, listen first and be humble about what's already been built where you are, right?
Exactly. And, you know, it's funny you say that because I spent most of my years growing up in a very small town in Virginia on the East Coast of the US.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have moved from New York City there now. And my parents are always saying the same thing. They want to get out of the bustling city and then they come down here and they try to change us to be like the city. It's a very common refrain around the world. People come in and they know they want change, but they revert to what's comfortable. And, you know, we have to resist that urge to an extent. And when you're new, try to listen.
Hmm.
You know, it's instinct though.
Yeah,
We all have to
yeah, it
kind of
is.
work through it.
It's okay, but
Yeah.
so how can we, or anyone who's viewing this, help the Padrino Foundation?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to be putting out a survey. So a lot of what I do is research based. We're going to be putting out a survey in this area to kind of understand some different mindsets around giving. So we understand better how to. It's the listening part of what I'm talking about, right? Better how to plug in. Better how to become a part of the Los Cabos conversation. Padrino Foundation is already partnered with Los Cabos Children Foundation. They've been partners for a long time. The Los Cabos Children's Foundation helps support Padrino. You can certainly go to the Padrino website and find out more information. There's a lot of information about the new clinic, about the children served, about the kinds of conditions being served. Many of these children, and Padrino's served almost 1,500 kids since its founding now, about 400 a year right now.
Hmm.
Many of these children have never seen a pediatrician before Padrino, really,
Wow.
and a lot of them have very acute conditions, and the whole life of their family can be improved with the support of medical support. So find out, dig in, you know, be curious about this foundation. And then if you're inspired to give and help support this cause and help sort of fill this need in the systems of Baja California Sur, I think there's been some fabulous quotes over the years and especially recently about how all children are our children.
Hmm.
That communities that are strongest think of every child as our own, and we give to and care and nourish that child. And so if we can come together as a community and make sure that the children of Baja California Sur have the health care that they need to thrive and that their families need to thrive, I think there's probably no gift more worthy than that.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for the conversation. I think that philanthropy and charity is an area that is especially good for intercultural cooperation here in Los Cabos and in Baja. I think that Americans are geniuses in organizing and being efficient at accomplishing an objective collectively. I think I've never seen anything like that until I moved to the US for a while and I witnessed it. And Mexicans we have this very special and keen cultural sensitivity to the people and around us and their needs. So when those two things come together, I think lots of good things can happen, and they are happening. So thank you for the conversation, and until next time.
I loved that framing. Thank you so much, Alex.